Okay, so now let's talk about a very interesting way in which psychoanalytic theory has been applied, and that's through psychoanalysis. And there are still psychoanalysts who practice today. There's actually a division of the American Psychological Association called Psychoanalysis that is devoted to psychologists and other professionals who are interested in psychoanalysis and perhaps practice it. So it is still going on today, but the concept comes from, but the way it's done is applied to therapy. The idea is that people have problems when they overuse those defenses, and again, you can see someone using denial, for example, can really get them into a lot of trouble. So you know, the unhealthy defense mechanisms may be a problem. Like regression, for example, you know, you might have a fixation from an unresolved conflict, and you know, maybe you're repressing your basic needs, you're not serving yourself well, or maybe you're overindulging yourself on the other end. Okay, so maybe you had some trauma as a child and you've repressed it, and that's like repressed memories of abuse, for example. So what is the goal of psychoanalysis? What is the goal of the therapy? Well, the goal is to free up this energy that you've been repressing. Remember, when you're repressing your thoughts and feelings, it takes a lot of energy to keep those thoughts and feelings down, keep those in. So the idea is to free up this energy, release it, perhaps through catharsis, to release this information. And the way to do it is you have to become aware of this. Remember that all those impulses and everything, those thoughts and feelings, they're in the unconscious. They're coming from your id. As a result, you're not consciously aware of it. So in the therapy session, the idea is to help you become aware of it. And usually that takes this isn't just done in one therapy session. This is done over a series of sessions. So one of the ways is to try to find, so the therapist's job is to try to find out what is going on in the person's unconscious. So it might use some techniques. One technique is free association, where maybe the therapist would say a word and tell you to quickly, immediately come up with the first thing that comes to your mind. Now realize why this would work according to this perspective is when you say the first thing that comes to your mind without stopping to think about it, that is like your ego is not getting in the way. The answer is coming directly from the id, and your ego isn't doing the filter job, trying to come between what is coming from your real thoughts and what may be coming out of your mouth. Okay? Transference is another example of is another technique that's used, and the idea is to just have the patient displace their feelings, their hostility, or whatever onto the therapist. It's a safe environment. They can get their feelings out, and they don't have to confront the actual person, or who might be causing. Maybe some memory of some being bullied when you were a child. Well, you can't really confront those bullies now, but maybe do it now in your therapist's office. When the patient shows what is called resistance, when the therapist is touching on something and the client vehemently denies something, really fighting against this awareness, that indicates to the therapist that maybe they've touched on something. If you're giving this kind of resistance, you're touching on a sensitive topic, and that may be what is coming from the unconscious that may be related to what problems you may be having. Another thing that psychoanalysts do, they'll often do dream analysis, because dreams are very important in talking about in trying to find out what might be going on in the unconscious. In fact, Freud calls it the royal road to the unconscious. So in your dreams, you have the manifest concept of your dream, which is the actual events that are going on in your dream. But what really was interested to Freud is the latent content. What is the hidden meaning of the images in your dream? You might have, for example, maybe let's say a person has real hostility toward a parent, and but this hostility comes from the unconscious. But the child now feels guilt, and the person feels guilty about it, They don't want to admit it, so it's repressed. Well, maybe the way to release it comes out in the dream. So they dreams that the person dreams that they're sending mom and dad on a cruise and waving goodbye to them as they go across the sea. Instead of that's a way of getting rid of them in a guilt-free way, and it's a way of getting that energy released. So you have sensory stimulation that is going on outside that may be coming into your dream, that is incorporated into your dream. Dreams may be related to the current concerns you're about having, but the unconscious impulses, according to Freud, are present in all of your dreams in some way. Okay, the idea regarding where these impulses, where these unconscious thoughts and feelings might appear, come in a number of different ways in real life, not in a therapy session. So, for example, you might have an error of memory. That may be something that your memory of an event may be repressed, or you're repressing part of it, and you're not giving the whole story. You might mix up words. Parapraxis is one of those accidents, maybe reflecting our unconscious. So, slip of the tongue would be like unsuccessful repression. In other words, the Freudian slip. You let a word out, that you say something that you really didn't mean to say, but maybe it was what you were really thinking deep down. And of course it can get you into trouble when your id expresses that, so you apologize for having that slip, but maybe it's a Freudian slip, maybe you did mean something by that. The concept of basically when we forget, maybe the forgetting is the same thing as repression. When we forget a doctor's appointment, maybe we're having a fear of going to the doctor that's coming from your id, and you just casually, oops, I forgot to go. Maybe that reflects that unconscious fear that you've repressed. So one of the ways in which we assess personality from the psychoanalytic point of view, from the Freudian point of view, is with projective assessment, because all of the interesting stuff is going on in your unconscious. Then a simple self-report questionnaire is not going to answer the question. You're not going to be able to consciously talk about what may be causing you to have your various problems. And what might be describing your personality, again, is coming from your unconscious. So, in other words, the way you do is a projective test. Much like the thematic apperception test is an example of a projective test. They come up with the stories to explain what is going on in this ambiguous picture. So now you have an ambiguous stimulus, and you project your projection. It goes into your interpretations of what you see. So this is essentially the energy is released in the stories you come up with. Okay, we've talked about the free association aspect, and we've also talked about maybe like a completing a thought type of activity. A very well-known projective test that is used by many psychoanalysts is the Rorschach test, and this is the famous Inkblot test, where the patient will look at an ambiguous inkblot, like I'm going to show you. Here's an inkblot here. Take a look at this inkblot, and now think about what this inkblot looks like to you. Okay. And how you describe what you see in this inkblot is then maybe reflects, maybe something going on in your unconscious. Okay. So, and again, the idea is different patients with different kind of condition would evoke different responses. So you have, some are black and some are red and black. Some have different colors, and it's a predetermined order. In the first stage, it's a free response format. Respondent says whatever he or she sees, and the questioning comes afterwards, in which the client's responses seem to indicate something, and the therapist is following up on those themes that are being revealed. Okay, and again, this is not really a very reliable test. Different people are going to come up with different kinds of interpretations of it. So don't put too much into the Rorschach test, but it's still used, and it's still an attempt to try to figure out what might be going on in the unconscious. So in scoring the Rorschach test, some of the things they look at is the where in the picture are they making the response? Is it about a portion of the picture, or is it about the picture as a whole? Is it a detail that most people notice, or is it a detail that very few people notice? The space surrounding it, are they paying attention to that? So, that would be, this is one way to look at it. Another way is like, are they looking at, the form of the picture, the shading, the color, texture, or perceived movement? And again, these were to represent different things. And finally, the content, what exactly are they talking about? So maybe there's overt meaning, but there's also symbolic meaning, what is hidden underneath. So these are the, so that would be another example of a test used in the process of psychoanalysis. Okay, next time we are going to get into Chapter 9, Psychosocial. Oh, actually, no, what I want to get into next would be the Neo-Freudians, kind of following up on some of his followers. We're going to talk about Adler, we're going to talk about Jung, we're going to talk about Karen Horney. They had some similarities with psychoanalytic theory, but they kind of went off in different directions. But they're all kind of related to the same idea about childhood influences affecting you as an adult and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in our next presentation. Thank you very much.